You probably can't read it well, but it says does not match, and it lists the specimen numbers that it was compared to, and it absolutely does not match. The way we declare a no match, for example, this is a 15. All right? If of all the suspects we have in a case, whether it's one suspect in a simple rape case or a complex case with 50 suspects, if none of our suspects have this 15, then they could not have provided the DNA to this profile, even though it's a weak profile. Okay?
And did you explain that to Mr. Nifong at this meeting?
Yes.
And does this particular analysis from one of the panty stains, does it indicate whether there is just a single male contributor or more than one male contributor?
I'm not sure if your question means, is it indicated up top? It doesn't indicate that up top, but the nature of this profile tells us that there's likely to be more than one contributor to this, meaning we've got more than one male's DNA. And I'll have to go back because I skipped over this quickly. When we look at Y chromosome DNA, we only expect to see what we call one marker at each location. And that's because the Y chromosome is passed down through the paternal lineage. My Y chromosome came from my father and his came from his father. So unlike, typically you think of DNA, you have two markers. You know, your mother has brown eyes, your father has blue eyes, so you have the combination of the two somehow. Y chromosome DNA doesn't work that way. Whatever your father had or my father has on their Y chromosome, I only receive from him with no contribution from the mother. So I only have one marker at each location. Now here, we have two markers. So the most likely way that would happen is if I have two persons' DNA. There are some very, very rare occurrences where there are mutations and things like that that will allow that to happen, but it's not the likely event.
Okay. And did you explain to Mr. Nifong at this meeting that if there was more than one of these, that meant that there was potentially more than one male?
We probably did.
Okay.
We talked at length about this.
Okay.
Let me ask you, do you have a specific recollection of telling that to Mr. Nifong?
Okay,
so you probably did.
Well, you opened the door for me. We had 3 meetings a long time ago, and what we talked specifically about at any one meeting as opposed to another meeting, or what they were not recorded, and whether or not I specifically used a certain word or talked about something, I really can't recall. I can tell you that we talked about these profiles, we characterized the profiles, we discussed the limitations of them. And knowing I do that all the time, knowing how I do that, I'm sure I would have said that this is indicative of multiple males.
All right, sorry.
That's all right. And this was one of the pieces of evidence that had been analyzed by that April 10th meeting.
That's correct.
And does that, when it says does not match,
Does that have a date written immediately next to it? Can you see it?
I can see it better on my copy here.
Okay.
The date is, then after it says does not match, list the specimen numbers, and then there are the initials of the forensic analyst, and then the date on that is 4/10/06.
Okay. And does that indicate that there was a comparison between what you found, the DNA you found on here, and the DNA profiles that you got from the reference specimens?
Yes, it means that was, those reference specimens were compared to this profile prior to that date, and then after that was completed, the analyst wrote that there.
Without going through, if you could actually look in the notebook rather than throwing it up on the screen, ask you a general question. It's 210B. See that here too? Okay. Is that another one of the evidence items that was done by the April 10th meeting, your April 10th meeting with Mr. Nifong?
Yes, it is. It's another item from Rectal kit and
The swab from the victim.
Okay. And
And
that-
what's interesting about these is that these Y profiles were taken from the epithelial fraction, not the sperm fraction from these stains.
Okay. And did that indicate the epithelial fraction from Ms. Mangum's rectal swab? Did that indicate the presence of any male DNA?
Yes, yes. You can see that we have identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a few more down markers. That can only happen if there's DNA from a Y chromosome.
And were there enough DNA characteristics on this to compare it to the player's reference specimens or profiles?
Yes, there's enough to compare. And to compare with a profile like this, we would compare for exclusionary purposes. We would, there's not enough information here to match a suspect, but there's enough information to exclude a possible suspect. And again, using the same analogy from a different location, and I don't know if it's true in this case, but if no suspect in the case contains a 14 on their Y chromosome, they could not have contributed to this profile.
And as with the prior one that was available on the 10th, does it indicate also on the top that it was compared and did not match any of the player's reference specimens?
Yes, it's indicated by the analyst's initials right there and the date being 410.
So you're saying that this test, the initial test, that it was determined that there was no match as far as the lacrosse players that were tested?
That's right. From these tests, there were no matches to any of the reference specimens we had to that date.
Just so I understand, to eliminate someone, all you need is one mismatch that you're
Yes.
looking for.
Yes.
But to make a match, you need a number of positive matches.
That's correct. And
So
that's for the same reason why you only need one.
Right.
Because, your Y chromosome DNA, my Y chromosome DNA might only differ by one marker. Okay,
Right.
so if I only look at 15 of them and all 15 match and I don't look at the 16th, then, you might be my uncle.
So is it fair to say in general, but especially with a poor specimen, my words, it's a lot easier to exclude people than it is to match people?
That's correct. You can, up to a point, there is a point, and we'll see some of these I think today, there is a point where specimens become so poor, the results are so poor, that even those results are unreliable. We begin to get, because of the nature of how we subsample our specimen to get the analysis, we get what we term stochastic effects. They're not random effects, but they become unpredictable. We may see a marker, we may use our instruments to look at a specimen and see a marker one time and go back to the same specimen, and the DNA quantity and quality is so bad, it may not be there the second time and we get a different one.
But on your reference specimens that you had here, those are all good samples.
Those are all
Okay.
perfect
All right.
profiles.
Sorry, Mr. Brocker.
That's okay.